Welcome to NHB KnifeWorks. I'm Nate Bonner, your host today for this lovely tour, or giant tour. So this building originally was making veterinary medicine for horses and then became the office space for a die cutting factory. So actually outside there's a Clydesdale horseshoe pounded into the ground, which is pretty awesome. I don't know if you can see it from right there. We pretty much saw that when we walked up to the building, and I was like, yeah, this is our spot. So blacksmith, good luck. And yeah, so original marble in here. So we try to keep everything pretty much the same as it was. I mean, obviously fresh paint, but and a couple of walls. But for the most part, the floor is all original too. We did a ton of sanding on this. It was a totally different color. I mean, it was almost gray. So this is like 4 coats of polyurethane and about 3 or 4 days of sanding. So yeah, these are our cases. Right now we pulled everything just because of the humidity that's in here right now. We don't really have air conditioning in here, so that's a little bit of an issue for us. So we've sectioned off, you know, our main workspace and a clean room and another room to store knives in so that we don't have any weird humidity issues with the steel. So for right now, the weather's getting a lot better, so it's really pleasant to be in here right now, so I'm super happy. All right, so this is my my workspace. This is where all the magic happens. I love these skateboards, and this is my drafting table. So this is kind of where I come up with all the fun designs that eventually become our knives. And we'll start with our packing, shipping, and receiving room. That's my little kitchen if you want to peek in there. My ramen cart. That's where I eat my lunches. And right here we've got all of the internet knives that are just ready to go. This is where we make all our boxes and all that fun stuff. So, you know, once knives are complete, go on the website, they all come in here and get ready to get shipped out. And we've got a couple going out today, which is pretty cool. So this is a little bit of a mess, but you know, it is what it is. Love the wood paneling in here though. It's very Anchorman-ish. And moving along, we got our one fancy office in here. This is the one room that like stays super clean. This is Mel's office, so we can't go in there because she'll kill us. And this is a pegboard that we put in here. This all was the same glass. This is the original glass that was in here. And it's really, really cool. It's super old school. So now I just use it sort of as my inventory board. And I love the way that it looks. We got really lucky when we moved in here that there was still some original stuff that we could keep. You know, there was some holes and that wall was not there before, so there's a little bit of work that went in here and a whole lot of white paint. So all the ceilings and everything have been painted. You can see the lovely knife that I painted on the wall in my abstract version of garlic. I think it's pretty sweet. Use the overhead projector for that, so it came out pretty nice. And into the main working area. A lot of people don't know that Andy Warhol painted a ton of knives, and that's one of the prints from, you know, his whole like knife phase, but he's got some really cool stuff out there, and I scored that on eBay. So this right here is our giant vacuum chamber, and this is for stabilizing wood, bone, and a couple other interesting things we got coming up in the future. But yeah, this essentially just gets hooked up to a vacuum pump, and yeah, it's once the lid's on there, you can actually pick up this entire thing by the lid. It's just on with the rubber seal. It's pretty amazing. You can only go so low with the whole sea level thing, but that'll get you there pretty fast with a 1-horse motor. Anywho, this is our space, and this is where pretty much all the magic happens. We pretty much condensed it all down to sort of 2 parts. You know, most of like the bare woodworking over there, and then some of the metalworking in here. I'll start with this guy, super important. Keeps my lungs clean. And you know, it's a giant vacuum. So we've just got it hooked up, you know, and channeled off and sectioned off to each of the machines that we use that make a lot of dust. One thing that you don't ever want to do is use your vacuum when you're creating sparks. So this is just a custom engineered piece of awesomeness that goes around our grinder, and I can easily remove that, put a bucket underneath here, fill that with a little bit of water, and catch my sparks that way. So this machine actually does pretty much everything for me if you want to get a look at it. It's a Bader made in New York. I love it. It's actually what they're using on that new fancy knife show where they forge all that cool stuff. I forget what it's called, but it's an awesome show. These are like the same machines that they're using. A little dusty right now, but essentially you can convert this to do pretty much anything. So giant wheels, tiny wheels, flat, and I'm pretty much always on the flat since we're making kitchen knives. Usually everything is going to be flat ground. And we do a lot of wood on here too, believe it or not. And even buffing. I've got this really cool belt. I talked to a buddy of mine I met on the lovely internet, and he has an abrasive company. I said, what about a felt belt? So he made some of these, and so this is just felt, and I can put abrasive compounds on here, and I can just polish the crap out of metal and not have to use stupid buffing wheels. So this is pretty cool. I'm pretty psyched about this. He sent me like a little box of them, you know, just to play around with, and I'm pretty much out of them now. So hi, if you're watching, I'm gonna order more. So basic disc sander. I use that a lot of the times if we have like a big piece of wood that we need to sort of just kind of square off before we go cut it on a table saw. I'm probably going to invest in there's a few more machines that I do need. One would be a big flat grinder, you know, with a really wide belt. So that's coming. If anybody wants one of these brand new in the box, I got one down here. Hit me up on Facebook. Real cheap. All right, this is the lathe. We kind of do things a little differently here when it comes to shaping handles. And once I have like a basic rough, boxy, ugly sort of handle on the knife, we've used this machine to go in and create all of our beautiful contours and get everything nice and shapely and sort of teardropped. I mean, our style really hasn't changed. I mean, it's been refined over the last couple runs of knives, but I mean, these just really fit well in your hand, and bottoms are real fat, tops sort of taper down, a little bit of a curved shelf on the top. So all that is done now with this. It used to all be done on the grinder, but you know, I found, you know, with this sort of motion and actually using your hand, you don't think that that'd be that accurate, but we get these things so dead on. You know, it almost looks machined, and that's all it is by hand. So there's two of us right now that shape, and that's it. And you know, it's funny when you get in a groove. This becomes a fun day, despite the fact that you're wearing half of your product. And you know, we wear a respirator even with the vacuum on because it's kicking out some dust, and it's all super fine. I mean, we go to 2,000 grit on these guys. So, you know, and it's one of those things that like everybody's real secretive how they make stuff and finish their stuff, and you know, it is what it is in knife making. But you know, I got lucky and a lot of people shared information with me. This is something that we just sort of took that was already around and just sort of made it our own. You know, I will say though that it is a pain in the ass, and so that's why you don't see this a lot. But you know, we've gotten used to it, and for our volume, which is sort of somewhere in the middle, we're not really at all high production, but I also wouldn't say we're low production. So for right now, this works. You know, a lot of people CNC handles, which we've sort of tried and rented time on machines, and it, you know, it's different, you know, and there's a lot of tweaking that has to be done, and it's just, you know, that's a whole nother art and science, working with CAD files and setting up machines. So, you know, for me and my skill level right now, I'm really happy doing the handles by hand. So, and then this is all stuff right now that's just going through the final buffing. So now we're going through at least 3 different compounds, sometimes 4 on buffing wheels, and we really try to get these things to glow. So right now these guys are all really not even halfway there. I mean, you can see a little bit of shine, but we want these things to just like bounce light. And it wasn't until maybe a few months ago we started really sort of changing our game a little bit on the finishing end. And that's really, you know, the most important and often most tricky thing when you're working with wood and plastic and stuff like that, and bone and everything else, is it's the finishing. You know, it's easy to shape stuff. I mean, my first couple knives I made with a glove and sandpaper. So, you know, you got to use all this fancy stuff and go to all these high grits, and it's great, but, you know, if you don't put the perfect finish on it, it's kind of just a big old waste of time. So, this is all I'm gonna try to get this done in the next 2 days, but I kind of doubt it. And then just our bench, you know, we just built this stuff and drilled it into the floor, and this is where I make my big messes, and you can see it's a little messy right now. We've kind of been hitting it hard for the last couple of days, and I haven't had a lot of help in here, so it's time to really do some cleaning. Anyway, we'll move over here, and you can see I'm going to probably end up insulating these in the wintertime and use those little floor heaters. I got a whole stack of them over here. This lovely piece of death and destruction is my first real grinder. It was actually this was all built by my Uncle Charlie, and he's awesome and super into knives and collects them and has a real Hattori too. But yeah, he finally kicked this to me, and it's awesome. And you fill that with water, and you plug it in, and you just pray to God it doesn't fly apart. So, pretty cool piece of machine right there. And actually, I had another grinder similar to that guy over there that was a company I won't name, and it came apart on me and then tried to kill me. I'm pretty sure either the machine was possessed or it's just poorly made. But either way, you don't want a sharp piece of steel in your face too close to it. I'm really happy with the Vader stuff though, and I'll probably end up getting another one. But on another note, drill presses are amazing, and I use this thing all the time. And it's really important to have a good, solid drill press that you can really dial in. This guy, I'll plug it in now. Actually, has a laser, so that's pretty sweet. And I've got that pretty much dialed in to wherever my crosshairs hit, that's exactly where that drill bit's going. Right now I have a giant bit on there because I was doing some experimental stuff with some large holes that I'll probably end up encasing in brass or doing something cool. I got some nice ideas for that. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Love that noise. Anyway, I keep this pretty slow too. I don't go crazy fast with the drill press, especially when you're using stabilized wood and bone. It'll burn it up really easily. So yeah, always unplug your machines. And then this guy is my total beater Grizzly, which was like maybe $80. This is great for if you don't have an end mill and you want to put holes in metal. So when I'm doing like my custom knives and I want to put holes because I'm going to do a full tang in there or something, or if I'm just punching out holes for weight reasons, I will use this. It's geared on the lowest gear. I'll use the metal bits and I'll just continuously spray with WD-40 or use some kind of tapping fluid and kind of just hope for the best. And you go through drill bits pretty fast. This is not made to cut or drill through metal at all, but you can make it work, So this was part of my original setup when I was in a basement in a very small room, and this was it for me. So I had to make do with what I had. And now that I have this big, beautiful, lovely giant drill press, this is what I'm using for all my wood and important stuff, and that's sort of just there for the beater. Same thing with the saws. This is the bandsaw I'm using right now. I love this saw, and I had a lot of scares on my table saw, and I'm lucky to have my fingers. There's not a lot that I can say that's bad about this Laguna. It really does what I need it to do, and the type of blade that I'm using, I can actually resharpen, which is cool. And it's called the Resaw King. And I'm cutting some very small slivers. I'll even show you guys some of the stuff I'm cutting off of that is this thin. So, that's like pretty freaking thin. To get an accurate, straight cut like that on stabilized wood is not an easy task. So, I just use scrap pieces of wood and sort of makeshift jigs as I need them. And this thing does a really good job. And now it's actually time to get sharpened. I'm going to probably buy another blade and just constantly swap them out. Because I'll dull this, that blade's like carbide tipped, and then it'll probably go maybe 3 weeks with me, just because we cut a lot of wood. And it's not so much we're doing a ton of volume, it's just every block that I get, I'm cutting like 4 or 5 times. And I'm shaving off slivers for side projects and doing all kinds of other stuff now. And also just saving, tons and tons of scrap. Recently saw a jewelry maker that came out that's using the same stuff, so we'll probably end up selling this. I actually gave a whole tub away. Giant tub to one of my friends that does some jewelry, so I'm sure you'll see a lot of that on the market. Same thing happened with the knife thing, with like the hybrid stuff, is now you're starting to see it everywhere, and we're kind of getting away from it, and we're doing some just our own handle material now. And it's really cool to see the hybrid scales with the stabilized wood and resin, but it's starting to just pop up almost too many different places now. So like anything, there's a trend, and it'll peak, it'll drop, it'll come back. You know what I mean? But during those times where everybody else is kind of doing it, we're trying to stay ahead. So you'll see us coming out with some new products, but definitely also just getting classic with it. I forgot how much I love just beautifully done pinstriped inlays on wood knives, and nice colors. So, and this stuff's cool too. That's a little piece of cactus and acrylic, which I love. I love the cactus stuff. Seems to give you way less problems than wood does. So, got a separate vacuum just for this guy right here. You can see it generates quite a bit of mess. I try not to breathe that stuff in too much. And then here is my least favorite saw in the whole world. It's also a Laguna, which is super nice. But yeah, for a long time I was using this to actually break down my handles because they were so hard. Some of the newer stuff that we were getting was just, my bandsaw at the time wasn't doing it. So we purchased this, and this would do it, but it's also, we're running such small blocks on here that you're having to strip all the safety equipment off. So right now it's just a blade sticking out of the table spinning really fast, and you'll use a jig like this or this, or sometimes very crudely this. I'll show you kind of what's going on here. Say I got this nice, rock hard block of stabilized wood. I got some tape on here. Just another little experiment I was doing. Let's say I wanted to break this down. I'm gonna have to line this up. Kind of find my center if I'm gonna go in half. And if I have like a nice rounded out piece or anything, that's gonna go into the blade first. And then I'm gonna essentially have to do this very carefully, but keep everything sort of locked in, and while that's on, just go for it and just slide into there as smooth and as easy as possible, and try not to have any jumps or scares. But when that thing, grabs onto something, or one of the teeth is messed up on the blade, the force is going towards you, and so it can kind of throw things. And anytime you get a jump or anything on this, your heart literally stops for a second. And I try not to use it anymore. So now that I got that blade and that saw, this is like more for just breaking down big slabs and stuff, which is great. Or if I'm like building something, like a coffee table, this is awesome. But other than that, for knife making, I'm kind of getting away from this. And like I said, unless we're going to stabilize some big chunk of something that I need to break down. So, and also, the throat on that saw is huge. So I don't know. I feel a lot safer with band saws, and I don't mind getting my fingers under there. This is just a whole different story because your wrist is sort of traveling over this. And by the time you're done, you're right about there. And when you're using a small jig, you're pretty close to that blade. And while that's spinning and you're feeling it underneath your hand and wrist, it's a little sketchy. So this is a router table. I love this thing. A lot of times we'll make templates for stuff, and we'll use the template to route something out. I don't use it as much as I used to. This was sort of like an afterthought for our hidden tang knives, but now I have a whole different way to put them together, where I actually use more saws and it's put together like a puzzle rather than just something that's routed out. Our newer style I'm really, really happy with, and in fact, we may transition all of our knives that aren't custom, like for our house line, into hidden tang knives, because I just think they're so much prettier and they're so much more stable, and there's just way less of a chance that anything could go wrong or water could get in, or it's with knives that are completely sealed, I'm totally confident those can last a lifetime and then some. Sometimes hidden tang knives, that glue will break down, water will get in through the rivets or your pins. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen if wood's not perfectly stabilized, which it happens. We've gone through a couple of different people where you'll get just the most amazing stabilized stuff, and then something that's just not, and it's not their fault. It's just when you're dealing with burl and stuff like that, it's hard. It's really hard to get everything consistent. So it almost you lose all that when you're doing hidden tang, because you can reseal everything. When you have that tang, it's it's a little more tricky, and so that's one of the reasons I'd like to go all into hidden tang. But even if we do that transition, it's not going to be for a long time anyway. Right now, I currently have about 400 blades made. So, we've got quite a bit of stuff to run through, and some designs that are finished now that we haven't even put out on the market yet, which will probably be coming out maybe this month. We want to get them out for the holidays. Enough of that. This is my first bandsaw. Fisher Price, my first bandsaw. This thing tends to pop blades a lot. I don't know what it is, if it's me that's setting it up wrong, but I seem to be really good with my other one. I've had many blades snap with my fingers literally right here, and they never got me. And I'm really thankful for that, but it's another scary moment because that snap is really loud, and every time it happens, you're not really ready for it, you jump. But it's weird. You almost have a sixth sense when you work with saws that you can feel that something is about to go wrong right before it goes wrong. And if you don't stop, something usually goes wrong. And then, when you stop, then you're like, well, I really didn't need to, and you don't know that something was gonna go wrong. So it's always in your head like a catch-22 when you're working with saws. Like, if you feel like there's gonna be a problem in the next half a second, go ahead and stop. And that's the one thing I've learned. Because it's the times where I'm like, oh, this just feels wrong, and all of a sudden, snap! And you know, it's you're catching your breath and you're checking your fingers. And even on something little like this, I mean, that does not look menacing at all, but I guarantee when your fingers are next to it and it pops, it sucks. So yeah, that's the fun stuff there. And then here's just all my lovely abrasives, and I go through more sandpaper than anybody I know, even just flat sheets. And I picked up one of these. This is really cool. This is for etching your steel. It's a tattoo gun for metal, essentially. It's pretty cool. And you can take like any kind of, you know, blocker, tape, whatever. They even give you special paper for this. You can just write whatever you want on there, tape it onto your knife, and plug this bad boy in, and pretty cool. So that's just for like customizing stuff. I haven't used it in a while, and I should probably clean that up. Pretty cool piece of machine though, I like it. For a while we were putting like pin-up girls and like all these cool like leaf patterns and stuff on metal just to see what we could sort of get away with. And, we came out with some cool designs. So, all right, this way. Show you the rest of our space that right now gets used for parties and skateboarding. So we've got a nice wide open area. We've had dinner lab in here twice, which was really cool. We actually sat 110 people in here. We had banquet tables running all down here, all the way back there. And we set up our forge room as a kitchen, and we had a team of chefs back there cooking, which was awesome. And all their plating was done out here in the open. And this is kind of where I keep my fishing crap right now. And yeah, cleaning supplies, awesome canoe, and which, you know, no life is complete without an awesome canoe. It's actually my dad's, but he doesn't know I stole it. Another knife on the wall, and I love the view. It overlooks the wonderful graveyard of classic and not so classic cars, which tend to be changing on a weekly basis. I'm not sure where they go or where they come from, and I don't ask any questions. So that's the backyard. It's nice to barbecue out there at night too. Got a lot of cool trees, and it's got a very, we'll say, urban, rustic vibe. I love it. So yeah, that's pretty much the rest of the open space. And we got a forge room in here. This is where we'll plasma cut, and we'll heat treat steel, and I'll do like texture work on blades. Right now I'm waiting on a much bigger anvil than that. That I kind of just use for straightening purposes. It's more of a little like hobbyist anvil. Then again, I'm not smithing too much at all. And like I said, most of this is just for heat treating. So I'll turn this on for you guys. This is fun. There we go. Check our pressure. There you go. So when that's closed up, that'll get really, really hot, really, really fast. I love propane because it's quick and easy, and I don't need a big forge. I'm not forging a lot. A lot of times with these custom knives, you know, I'll make them, you never want to walk too close to that. You know, I'm using bar stock, and I'm plasma cutting, you know, and I'm ending up with something like this. This is my gardening knife, aka small machete. But, you know, once I get, this is rough ground right now. It's a great shape. I'm happy with it. I don't want to take too much metal off. Now I can do a technique called passing, where I'm actually going to open up both doors, and I'm going to pass this through, and I'm going to heat it up as evenly as I can. This gets quenched in a big old bucket of oil. Turn this off for you guys so you can hear me. Make sure the gas is clear. Kill the valve. And you know, once this gets heat treated, then you can do the finishing grind lines on it, and you can polish it up. The reason you don't want to like grind everything to where you want it and then heat treat it is you can warp this pretty easily. And you know, with this kind of stuff, it's getting pretty thin already. I didn't want this to be like super, you know, heavy duty. This is more for like, you know, at-home gardens. Yeah, you want to keep it straight. So it's better to do like, you know, half of your grind work, heat treat it, and then finish the rest of it. So you can see I've got like this little bit of a, you know, sloppy grind on there. And then once that's hard, we can go back in and smooth everything back out, make it look all cohesive and pretty. Put up a fireproof tarp in here and covered all the holes in the walls with metal tape, and we're relatively safe in here. So I'm happy. Never really had any problems. Normally, whenever you do work, like, especially if you're welding or doing anything like that, you always want to do your work in the morning, and you want to watch for the next 4 hours to make sure there's no smoke or any weird smells. I learned that from my cousin who's a welder. He said, weld early and then hang around for a while. So, yeah. That's when we break out the sandwiches and beers and picnic tables. We don't do that here, I'm just kidding. That's pretty much it. That's NHB KnifeWorks. Enjoy. That worked.